What do I do with you? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Who invited you? I did, but why are you here? Hello, welcome back to my channel, Knits by Mandy. My name's Amanda, and here we talk about knitting and other fiber arts. And today we're actually going to be talking about the other fiber arts, as well as knitting. And this is my third podcast episode that I'm uploading to my channel. So if you are interested in that type of thing, there's 2 more videos up here for you to watch if you haven't already. And I also just recently uploaded a styling my me-made wardrobe for spring and summer video, if you're also interested in that type of thing. So that's what I have going on here. And without further ado, let's just get into the podcast today. We'll just go over kind of the standard format. We'll talk about what I'm wearing / finished objects, any whips that I have going right now, some acquisitions, which usually is kind of smaller on my channel, but not today. We're doing a few unorthodox things today, that being one of them. And then I think at the end, I like to talk about whatever I'm listening to or watching, because that's what I do a lot of the time when I'm knitting, or in this case, crocheting. So without further ado, let's get into what I'm wearing and my other FL that I have for y'all. I finished the Anker sweater by Petite Knit. If you've been watching my videos, you would have seen that I've been working on it, and I'm really happy with the finished object for the most part of the sweater. So the specs, I knit a size medium, I believe, and it goes up to size 3X, and I think extra small is the smallest size. She recommends using Knitting for Olive held double, and I think also a Sandisgarn yarn, which I've never used that, or I don't think we have great access to that yarn either in the States. So I opted to go for Knitting for Olive, and this is the Dusty Purple, or Artichoke Purple. It's not Dusty Artichoke, it's Artichoke Purple, but I do feel like it's almost like a dusty purple color. I really love this color. I've been having a purple moment, and I've kind of been talking about that. I recently noticed that I have so many purple items in my wardrobe, and I thought, why not add a pop of color, but in a very kind of basic and classic silhouette. And I know that this is a pretty popular pattern, so I won't go on and on about it, but I just have to say I'm really having a moment with the Scandinavian design in general, because the simple classic aspects of that I just think are so lovely, and I think I will wear this sweater for years to come. And I really like that. I really also noticed that I have a bunch of kind of basic crew neck sweaters that I wore this winter, that I had either thrifted or just purchased over the years, and I got a lot of wear out of them, and they kind of became a style staple for me. So I thought, well, I have to make one, because who am I to let this Brooks Brothers thrifted sweater outshine me? Not Knits by Mandy. So that being said, I did make a modification to the length, in that I made it kind of shorter than, maybe just a skosh shorter than recommended. I wear really high-waisted things, so this comes up. That's really scandalous, Amanda. This comes up above my belly button. Honestly, most of my pants do, if not right below. So I like when sweaters either hit right at my natural waist or a little bit lower. And this one's pretty good. So I don't have to worry about tucking it in. And unless it's gonna be a purposely oversized sweater, I don't like when things are too long. So I'm pretty happy with the length. The other modification I made was to the sleeves. And I think I just skipped 1 round of decreases, and I kind of made them a bracelet length. I don't know how to show you my wrist. I don't know what to do with my hands. So I made them a bracelet length, and I like the taper, and I also like the length. I realized a few of the last sweaters that I've made didn't have any sleeve tapering or shaping, which is fine because I like the style of those sleeves, how they look aesthetically. Practically, I absolutely hate the phenomenon of having to shove an oversized sleeve into a jacket. So when it's like actually cold out and you need to put on your winter jacket and you need to like, you usually have to do like one of these things or like fold it up. And I hate that. I like hate the feeling of it. I hate feeling my sleeve bunched up under my jacket. So I thought, okay, why don't we make one that we don't have to worry about that and it'll still look cute. So I did keep them a little bit short, and also I can do the dishes and not worry about having to take my sweater off, which is a big worry and concern for me, I guess. So I'm trying to think if there's any other things to mention. As far as construction goes, it is a top-down raglan sweater, and you start by making this 1x1 rib yoke, which I have noticed that a lot of people don't like doing ribbing. And I actually really like it, and not to be like, actually I like ribbing, so I don't know what's wrong with you, but I actually really enjoy ribbing. So someone I think messaged me, they're like, oh, I don't know if I would actually want to like do that yoke. This yoke was the most fun to knit because it's just interesting enough, and the increases, how they do them are just interesting enough, but it's also so simple. And I mean, the rest of the sweater is stockinette, so you'll have plenty of time to do that. And it's very stretchy and comfortable, and that's really nice too. So the one other thing about this is I think that when you're knitting it, your collar looks a lot smaller. Like it almost looks like it'll be more of like a true crew neck like this, but this collar does stretch out just because, you know, this is stretchy. So just keep that in mind if you do end up knitting this. I have seen some people where they do like a turtleneck option and like maybe do another, add an extra round. So there, I mean, there's like 1,000 of these projects on Ravelry. Like I am one of many to knit this sweater. So that's just my note for the yoke, and that this is getting stretched out already. So I might consider just doing some elastic here should I want to. Right now I don't really feel the need to, but as you know, I grow in love with this sweater, I might make that adjustment. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I honestly just really enjoyed the simplicity and the ease of making this sweater. I had finished, I can't remember, the last sweater I did was sweater number 15, and it was tedious. So just doing something not tedious was really fun. And I forgot to mention that it's knit with a fingering weight held double, so a DK weight, and it's knit on 4mm needles. So that is the Anker sweater by Petite Knit. I'm extremely happy with how it turned out. If you want to see how I style it, you can check out my latest video. And yeah, so we'll move on to the second and last finished object that I have for you all today. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. For my second finished object, I also featured this in my styling video, and I swear that'll be the last time I plug it. But if you want to see it on, I'd honestly recommend checking that video out. But this is the Bowvine tank by Knit. I also haven't blocked this yet. Disclaimer, I don't know if I will. This project has been sitting in my languishing pile. I don't even want to call it my whip pile for a while. And I talked about this, it was on purpose. I started this last fall. I started and I finished the color panel, and then by the time I finished it, I wanted to get started doing cold wear items, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna put this to the side. I'm not gonna want to wear a cow print crop top, unfortunately, in December, and I didn't. The urge never really came, so I know myself pretty well. And I finished it eventually this spring. I worked on the back panel, and I did these ties when I was home in Pittsburgh. So to talk about the pattern, it is done using in tarja, the front panel, and this was my first ever time doing color work. So whoa, that was a big deal for me. I think I would have done a few things differently. First thing was that I would have printed out the color chart on like big paper. I don't have a printer because I'm a millennial, and millennials don't own printers. And so I got it printed at my local library because we love the library. but you know, you can't really control like the sizing sometimes of how they print things out. So she printed it out like pretty small, and then it was also black and white, so it was kind of hard to read. So I did it on my computer, which even if I had like an iPad, I feel like it'd be nicer to like cross things off. So it did just like take focus, which is the nature of color work as my understanding. So the color chart's very comprehensive, but however, like if you're not following it closely, you could obviously easily make a mistake, just by nature of knitting and color work. But you know, if you misplace one stitch here or there, it's really not going to make a big difference, I feel like, in the finished product, because it's cow print and it's abstract and it's like very loosey-goosey. So you can actually see up here these like 3 black stitches I don't think are supposed to be there, and I think I just miscounted, but it doesn't really, you can't really even tell from here anyway. So that's my note on the color chart. I think it was really fun, and I think I tried to do a good job doing sewing in my weaving in my ends, and I actually did that last fall, so I'm having a hard time kind of remembering how hard it was. I also don't mind weaving in ends that much. I really don't. But I also have yet to do something that's like required serious weaving in. I really don't like to seam. Seaming can friggin' take a short hike off a short pier because I really don't care for it. But I did seam for this pattern. So the 2 tricky things for this pattern, maybe 2.5, are that you do a provisional cast on to do this folded hem and finishing on the top. So it's provisional cast on the bottom, and then you do a folded hem up here. And so, you know, it uses those skills if you have not used those yet. And then you sew them to the sides, which sewing through these folded hems is just like a little tricky, and you just need to be a little careful about it. I think it's not like the perfect finish, at least for me, which I'm not too concerned about, because I think for something like this, it's going to be fun to wear to like a concert and things like that, and like going out, but it's not going to be like, I want this to be a forever item, but I'm not like too concerned about it looking like an Ankers sweater. Does that make sense? That's probably why I haven't blocked it yet. So those are the 2 tricky things, are the folded hems and the seaming on the folded hems. And the half thing that I was talking about is that you do 4 double knit straps, and these are quite long. I'll untie them for you, and it just takes a really long time and it's boring, and I honestly disliked this, doing this kind of like double knit strap, more than I dislike ribbing or weaving in ends. I just find it very frustrating because you're always just waiting to see how long they get and how long you'll be there. You're waiting to see how much progress you've made, and it just feels really slow. But you know, you always get it done at the end of the day, so that's fine. And I also have never figured out to make how these like ends look less oblong. They don't look great, but if you know how to do that, maybe I'm binding off incorrectly. So there's that. Anything else about the bovine tank that I can relay to you? This is a very size inclusive pattern, so that's really great. I think it goes up to a 5X, which is awesome. And I really do like it. I think it's really fun and cheeky. It'll be a really fun summer project. I do think, back to the straps, I think I probably could have figured out a way to like knit these on the same needle, but that was above my pay grade. I just wanted to get this done. So I'm so glad I finally finished it. And here is the Knit bovine tank. More coffee, please, more coffee. In the past month, I finished this sweater, I finished the bovine tank, and I really only had time to start one whip. I was hoping to get camel cell number 5 on the needles, and I'll talk about that shortly, but spoiler alert, it didn't happen. Didn't happen, folks. So I just have one whip for you today, and a Knits by Mandy first podcast episode exclusive. It's a crochet project. And so if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen this. I mean, maybe you haven't, and that's also okay. It's really fun. Before I get into this project and kind of the specs of it, I touched briefly on why I'm making it in my last knitting vlog, so I'll repeat myself here briefly again. But I have an 88-year-old great aunt who is moving out of the house that she's grown up in. It's a row house, and it's not very accessible for her anymore. So it's a really big step, it's a really big deal, and that's happening soon. And I wanted to make something for her so, you know, she can think of me and think and, you know, be comfortable and know that she's, you know, warm and cozy in her new place. And I also kind of went through and posted on my Instagram stories this week. When I was home, I think back in September, I went through, and before this channel started, I went through and looked at old Afghans that my grandmothers have crocheted in the past. And so they range from like really big to kind of smaller throw blankets. And this really reminds me of those and kind of just like blankets we grew up either in my house or like my aunt's house. And I just think these things are really special, and I hope this can keep my aunt really comfortable. So it's a blanket, and here's a good look at it. I promise I didn't match on purpose. My aunt probably gave me my love for purple. It's her favorite color. And I am following a TL Yarn Crafts. I'm following a TL Yarn Crafts video. Oh my god. It's the MOCHA Ripple Afghan, and it's a very simple like ripple crochet stitch. And I'm doing it a skosh differently. So I think I basically have up until, I guess, this purple, I would call this like a whole section. So what I'm doing a little bit differently here is, if you look, you know, from this beige stripe to this purple, all of the colors are repeated only in 2 rows. But you'll see that like this multicolor and this dark purple are like sandwiched. So I wasn't gonna use them as much as the other colors. So I decided that this will kind of be one section. And so I'll do a section of just everything getting the same amount, and then those sandwich colors getting 4 rows. And then it will add just a little bit dimension, maybe a little movement into the piece. And yeah, that's where I am so far. I have to say I've really enjoyed the crocheting and the experience. I knew that if I ever made a blanket, I just didn't want to knit it because it would take too long and I think I'd get bored. And I think this, like being an activity that, crochet, being an activity that I don't do very often, paired with I'm still kind of learning, has made this interesting enough for me, and I'm not too bored yet. I'm definitely excited to get back into knitting, and I'm trying to do that, but the shipping lords are putting me straight into crochet zone, which is fine because I do want to finish this. This isn't something that I want to be working on until the end of the year, which I don't think I will be, because this is just going to be like a throw blanket shape. I think I made it to be 50 or 60 inches across, probably 50, because 60 is 5 foot, and I don't think my wingspan is 5 foot. And yeah, just to say I've been really enjoying this. I did make a mistake where I kind of messed up the increases at the beginning, but I'll either maybe add a trim, or honestly, my aunt won't really care because she loves me and she thinks everything I do is amazing. And if that sounds annoying, just try being Italian, okay? You get it. I don't know what that means, but really I did, to on a more like serious note, the first 2 rows I felt like were the hardest because I was really scrutinizing my stitches and what they looked like and their tension, and I was so annoyed that on knit like crochet, you know, you only get the right side on half of it and the other half's the wrong side whenever you turn your work. But now that you see it kind of in aggregate, it looks really nice and really normal. I did also kind of mess up the increases. So you can see here, there's supposed to be kind of this column where you make the increases, and I wasn't really doing that down here. But again, it's not gonna matter. And the nice thing about doing a blanket is that it's so big that, you know, you really can't really see the little mistakes that you make. So in a way, it is a good beginner crochet project as long as you kind of know how long it's gonna take you. I did bring my first ever crochet project with me just to show you guys. I think I've improved quite a lot. I did these granny squares back in last May. I'm kind of thinking that maybe crochet is like a once a year kind of thing for me. I just get like the itch for it. I think ultimately I really like how knit garments look better than crochet garments, but for things like homeware, I really like the efficacy of crochet and kind of the options that are there for me. So I don't think I'll really be crocheting many garments in the future, but maybe definitely knitting Afghans like a granny, you know, like my grannies, which I think is really sweet. I just feel like very connected to both my grandmothers doing this, even though I didn't spend that much time watching them crochet, but I knew it's something that they did. Kind of likewise for cooking. My one grandmother was a really fantastic Italian cook. So I think that's a really special aspect of fiber arts. It's something that has been passed down, you know, mostly by women. So to feel kind of connected to family members, I think is really special and not something that you can get with everything that you work on. So, and it just, I think the object itself for me is very reminiscent of things that I had around my house in my childhood. So I'm really happy with how this is going. And I didn't even show you all the yarn. So let me show you all the yarn. I got really sentimental. So I'll just show you very quickly because I did show this in the other video. I'm doing 4 colors. These are all Bernat Super Saver, and really, we're just purpley purple today. So I picked one print, which I think this is mulberry. I think the beige is called oatmeal. This is dark purple, and this other one is like, I don't really remember. I think it's like a lilac-y shade. I did not love this dark purple when I first saw it. I still don't love it. It's given Barney, and I wish I had more of like a indigo. But again, I think it's gonna be fine. I think my aunt kind of likes this shade of purple, so I think, you know, it's not gonna be in my house, it'll be in hers. So these are the yarns I'm using, just acrylic. I honestly like using acrylic yarn for something like this. I just also know it's gonna be around forever because we still have acrylic blankets in my house. So I know it's not the most eco-friendly option, but for a blanket, it's really the most affordable. I really couldn't fathom spending too much more on a blanket. But that being said, that is my only whip, this Ripple Afghan. I'll just show it one more time. And yeah, moving on to acquisitions. Summer knits, we're in full swing. We're trying to get things started. It's already May and I feel like I'm behind. But summer in DC will truly remind me that I'm not behind because summer lasts here until like October 1st. So I think about that every time. Swamp ass season lasts forever. It is eternal. Okay, so I have 3 things to show y'all as far as yarn acquisitions go. And I did talk about one of these in my knitting vlog, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I have this La Bien-Aimée Merino singles, and I got 2 of these, which, your girl, this was expensive. I already said that in the last video, but this was expensive. And I was really excited when I bought it because I bought it with gift cards at my local yarn store. My friends got me gift cards for my birthday, blah, blah, blah. It was very sweet. Lo and behold, I bought this yarn. It was kind of an impulse purchase, which I usually try not to do because then I'm like, what do I do with you? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Who invited you? I did, but why are you here? Kind of thing. And I have to say, I really liked how it looked up in the hank, and then I wound it up, and then I felt very uninspired by this. I think mostly because these colors are very jewel toned and very fall, and they're not giving me springtime fun realness. They're giving me very much like fall. So let me see. I did have a gauge swatch for y'all. Oh, there it is. So I did swatch this up, and then again, I wasn't feeling very inspired by her. Like I was just like, oh. So I think what I'm gonna do is just, you know, put this aside for now and come back to it in the fall where these colors I think will call to me more, because I have made things, especially with this like ochre color. It's like ochre. I've been reading way too many yarn color descriptions lately. I think I know what I'm talking about. But I really like this yarn. I think it's beautiful, but I'm just not really feeling its purpose yet. So I did just kind of, the spark wore off, but I do think that there's a future for us. I'm just, you know, I have to put in the work for it. So that is the La Bien Ami. If you have any ideas, someone I think recommended maybe I get a mohair in the fall, in which case I'm not knitting with it now if I need a mohair, because again, like I said, it's swamp ass season. It's gonna be hot. No mo, take the mohair away. Banish it until October. Okay. Next two things are Knitting for Olive acquisitions. And I decided, I went back and forth over using something in my stash for camisole number 5, which first of all, everyone and their dog is making this shirt. And I've seen it everywhere. But I was thinking of using this whack yarn that I had in my stash, but I realized it's like 70% alpaca, which would be way too hot for the summer. It's very fuzzy. And I decided, no, absolutely not. We're not doing that. So I was like, well, twist my arm. I'll buy more yarn. Okay. So I went over to knittingforolive.com because I really just love their color selection, and last time I ordered it, it came very quickly, and I was wildly wanting that instant gratification. So I bought 3 in these 2 colors of different yarn, different bases. The top is the merino and the bottom is the cotton merino, because that has been really interesting to me. So the top is the merino and the bottom is the cotton merino. So we'll talk about the merino first. This is in the color dark cognac, which honestly, it looks chocolate brown to me, and I was kind of wishing it to be more cognac-y, more camel-y, but I should have bought the light one. But I still think this will be really nice with my complexion and my hair and my coloring. So I'm going to continue to use it. So yeah, this will be for camisole number 5. And then I thought, okay, well, if I'm ordering yarn from freaking Europe, I better just get like something for another garment. And I really had been eyeing the cotton merino, and I don't have something specific in mind. I might even use a pattern from the Knitting for Olive website. They have this really dainty, sexy ribbed wrap top, which kind of reminds me of another My Favorite Things Knitwear tank top. Not the one maybe the one I'm making. Anyway, the idea of a cotton merino really interested me because, you know, the merino adds a bit more structure to the cotton, is my understanding, but the cotton will keep you a bit cooler. And there aren't a whole lot of, there's not a lot of affordable cotton merino options out there. And there are different compositions. So what I was seeing is that you can either get them that are 50-50, which I imagine would be a warmer tank top and maybe give you more of that like memory that you get from using wool, or you can get 70-30, which was what I went with. I usually don't find 100% merino like really hot. I have a tank top in superwash merino that I made last summer, and I did sweat in it, but it, you know, it's wool. It has that property to it. I'm not really good at describing. I don't find it too overbearing, but I thought might as well try cotton merino because it might be even like cooler and more comfortable. Holding them next to each other, I don't actually know if I could tell these apart with my eyes closed. This has more of like that has more of a cottony feel. It has more of like a sheen almost. It's not shiny, but when you hold it, it has a very smooth feel in your hands. So, and this is in the color Elephant Blue, which I feel like is the sister of this purple. Like, I feel like it's the same tonality. My phone's dying. I feel like it's the same tonality of this purple. I might not be. My color theory and my yarn knowledge aren't the best. So these are my two acquisitions. Yeah, I basically started knitting a little swatch for camisole number 5, and I realized that I thought I had size 3 needles, or 3mm needles, but I don't. And I will say on her pattern, it says US size 3mm, and US size 3 is actually 3.25mm, which is what I have. And I realized that this is going to be really big, and I don't really like the fabric that this is already knitting up. So I went ahead and ordered 3mm needles, which I was like, I feel really bad using the carbon emissions to send knitting needles to me, but that's what I did. So I was thinking of getting I don't have them in my interchangeable set, so I was thinking of getting 3mm interchangeables, but those were short, and I didn't think I would maybe love that feeling if I wasn't knitting a sock or something on a short circumference. So that being said, I'm waiting for needles to come. They'll come later this week, and then I'll finally get started on this camisole. Okay. It's tough. It's tough, guys. It's tough talking about things that interest me naturally. It's been a while that I've talked about other things that I want to knit. I feel like I've been talking about this sweater in camisole number 5 forever, and that is just kind of the reality when you take things slow or like take up at knitting, at crocheting an Afghan. But I am thinking of things that I would like to be making this spring, and one thing that I've still thought of is knitting a dress. And I've seen this cardigan. It's called the 2 for tie top. I'm just putting it on the screen. I really can't remember it. And it like just ties in the front. It's very sweet, and I've been thinking of knitting a matching dress with that. But then I also think, like, will I get bored knitting a dress? And I might. If you've knit a dress, sound off in the comments. I'd like to know. I definitely wouldn't be using a fingering weight yarn. I saw someone adapted the Cumulus tee by Petite Knit, and if I can find it, I'll put it in here. And it's Cumulus tank, excuse me, into a dress, and it's stunning. But I genuinely do not have faith in myself to finish a fingering weight dress. I think I'd actually rather die, but I really want to own that dress. So that's where I'm at. I've been just kind of like throwing around these ideas in my head. And I did really want to make the souffle tee by Penrose Knits, but I want to make the mohair version, but again, we're keeping it safe and healthy distance away from mohair as the temperatures rise this season. And I'm looking at my notes, sorry. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I really just want to make tank tops. The last thing I want to make definitely is I want to make a black turtleneck, sleeveless turtleneck that I can wear on Zoom, basically. The idea of making clothes to wear for Zoom makes me really sad. I'm not gonna lie. But I do get the luxury of working from home. So just something that, like, it's fine to show my shoulders, but I still feel weird, especially because on Zoom, if you like only see this, you can really just look naked and look like you're bearing it all. And I feel very like, I don't feel like this really in other parts of life, but I do feel a bit prudish when I go onto Zoom. I'm like, I really don't. Or I guess modest is the better word. I just don't want to like be showing everyone all of this. But catch me on Instagram. It might be a little bit different. Just saying. Okay, Amanda. So that's what I've been thinking about making. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? I'm so tired. I think the good thing about summer and spring knits is they take a really short time to make, and so comparatively, so I can kind of like think on my feet. And again, I just have a feeling summer's going to be long and short at the same time. So we'll see what I get done, and we'll see what happens. And those are the plans. The plan is we're vibing. We're trying to catch a vibe on what we want to knit next. I think we have concluded the fiber arts portion of today's podcast. And with that, I do like to talk about at the end just things that I've been watching and listening to. And because that's what I do when I knit or crochet, I'm here watching the TV, watching the YouTubes. But I'll talk about TV. I do really want to like showcase fiber arts YouTubers in some way, and I was thinking of doing like an Instagram graphic where people can like put in their favorites. I just haven't gotten around to doing it, but that might be something that you see over on my Instagram, Knits by Mandy, because I do watch a lot of knitting podcasters all the time. It's very comforting to me. I think most people feel very like the same. It's really nice to just like be knitting and have other people talking about knitting on your screen. I mean, that's why you're here, I think, and that's why I'm here, to provide that content and to also like enjoy it. I'm also always doing that. So maybe I'll talk about that in another video, because I haven't like thought of a full list, even though many names come to mind immediately. But however, I'll start with podcasts that I've been listening to. I have, let me check my notes. I have 3 recommendations for you, I believe. Yes, okay, so I think I've actually talked about Las Culturistas before, but they just released 3 episodes for their 300th episode anniversary. And if you're unaware, they talk about pop culture. It includes Bowen Yang from SNL and Matt Rogers, who's a Pisces male actor, and I love him as a fellow Pisces. He's hilarious. And for their 300th episode, they're doing the 300 songs of the Great Global Songbook, where they've like ranked 300 songs. And I find it quite hilarious. It's really funny. It is a lot, but I've definitely been listening to that lately, and it's honestly been putting a big smile on my face, which has been much needed. And I've also been listening, I kind of dived back into this podcast called Be There in 5. It's hosted by Kate Kennedy, and she also does like long form pop culture deep dives, which I really like. She's a great person to listen to if you really like long form content and you kind of just want someone to keep you company. She's very rambly, and she usually doesn't have other guests, and she's kind of like stream of consciousness, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea. Some people just like to like get to the point, but especially if you work from home or like find yourself wanting to hear other people's voices, she's a nice voice to have on in the background. And she talks about really interesting things like Mormon mommy bloggers, and she did a whole series on purity culture and like wedding culture and kind of like everything that kind of surrounds weddings in our society. Most recently, she talked about the influencer tanks, which like that might be a very niche audience I'm marketing to, but it was an excellent episode, and she talks about things like that. She talked about like Rachel Hollis, so kind of like, she doesn't really do like scams, but kind of like those like questionable influencers, she'll talk about them too. So I really appreciate, and I've listened to her podcast for a long time, since I think before the pandemic started. So that's a recommendation if you like long form content, which I think most people that consume knitting podcasts enjoy kind of just having a voice on in the background. And it's really nice, and I can really relate to that. The last one is probably like very mainstream, but I've been listening to, it's kind of cheesy too, I've been listening to Unlocking Us by Brene Brown, and I'm gonna be honest, like I still am so unclear on what Brene Brown's like title is, but she's written a book about vulnerability and about how vulnerability is our greatest superpower. And I think she has these 2 podcasts, Unlocking Us, which is about more like, it's so hard to describe. I'll give you a few examples of like last episodes that I listened to. So she did one on kind of the effects of the pandemic on how we'll really never be the same and how the way we work will never be the same. And she did a really interesting one about like still the effects of the pandemic, but also how, I'm not wording this well. Sorry. I remember what the episode was about. It's about like finding joy when the world is really, really sad and upsetting. That's the very condensed Knits by Mandy's Reader Digest version. And I just really like having kind of a more thoughtful podcast to listen to. She did a really interesting one talking to a Franciscan priest, which like normally really isn't my bag as someone that grew up Catholic, but he talked about his like view on spirituality and like Christianity, which I know it's very like loaded and heavy for a knitting podcast, but as someone who grew up Catholic, it was just really interesting to me and like it really stuck with me. So I'd be remiss not to mention it here if any of that interests you. And those are the podcasts I would recommend that I haven't recommended already. As far as television show goes, let me pull up my note again. The first show that I really want to recommend that I'm probably late on recommending is Only Murders in the Building. I watched it with my parents when I was home in Pittsburgh, and it was like, I mean, it was hilarious. I think it's one of the funniest shows I've seen in a while, which again, we could all use a laugh. And it's Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And it's a comedy, but it's also true crime, which I really like the pairing of that because it's like true crime, but it's like, it's self-aware almost. Because I don't really like true crime at all. It's not my bag. I don't like it. But this was definitely up my alley. So it was also a great show to watch with my parents because they obviously are more familiar with Steve Martin and Martin Short than I am. Even I know who they are, but you know, they're of their time. So that was really fun to watch with them, and it was really a hoot and a holler. I also started watching Better Call Saul with my boyfriend. We only got like through the first 5 episodes of season 1, but it's so good. And if you've watched Breaking Bad, if you haven't watched that, like me, I'm sure there's like none of you out there because Better Call Saul is a very popular show. It's really good, and it's just like, I'm not good at describing, like, it's very like cinematic is what I'll say. And you can tear me apart in the comments for that. It's really like a hostile community we have going. I'm kidding. So Better Call Saul's good. Again, I'm like really recommending popular things, but hello, what am I if not a follower? Am I right, ladies? My last 2 things that I've been watching, which are, oh wait, no. Before we get to reality television, if you haven't watched Bridgerton, hello South Asian representation. Pew, pew, pew. If you don't know, my dad and his family are actually from India. So I thought that was cool. I really like, although I don't not necessarily look like the women on the television show, I think it's really great. And like my heart warms anytime I see, you know, South Asians representing on Hollywood, and especially in a way that's not about like how smelly they are or how bad or how good at math they are or how nerdy they are, you know? So that's pretty cool. I really appreciate that. That's my really nuanced take of Bridgerton. And also it's hot. It's freaking hot. I'm just gonna say it. It's steamy. It's lustful. It's sinful. And I love it. Me and my boyfriend watched it and I was like, every last moment I was like, shut up. Stop. They're staring at each other again. It was a really good season. If you haven't watched it, I'm not really a huge Shonda Rhimes fan. Fun fact, I actually took a Shonda Rhimes class in college and we like reviewed Grey's Anatomy and How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal for class. That's what happens when you go to liberal arts college. So still not a huge fan of Shonda, but Bridgerton I'm liking, even though, you know, it's just so dramatic and sometimes I'm like, okay, we get it. But Bridgerton's kind of already like an established storyline and plot, so I'm okay. Furthermore, and finally, if you watch these parts of my podcast, you know that I am a big reality television gal, and right now I think my two favorites, I watched Selling Sunset. I was on a trip this weekend, which is why I'm like a husk of myself, and I watched Selling Sunset on the train, all of it, because it was a 6-hour train ride both ways. So good. I think it's such a ridiculous television show. It's insane. Like, nothing happens, but everything happens. And this was like kind of emotional. Like, the reunion was kind of emotional, and Tan France was an actually good reunion host. Most people don't have the chops that Andy Cohen has, if you're familiar with reality television reunions. But Tan France was good. I think he held his own, and he like asked questions, and he was good at prodding in a way that's like inquisitive, but it's not rude or aggressive. So that's really the balance that I feel like reunion hosts have to strike. See, I cannot explain to you like why Better Call Saul's like videography looks good, but I can explain to you the ins and outs and the intricacies and like socio dynamics of reality television reunions. That's, you know, you gotta know your strengths. Finally, speaking of reunions, is New Jersey, Real Housewives of New Jersey finally ended, and if you love shows with strong and effed up family dynamics and you haven't watched Real Housewives of New Jersey, don't know what you're doing, you need to run, not walk. Watch season 1 and 2 and your mind will be absolutely blown. It is some of the best television. This season was pretty good. I do think Teresa's getting a little big for her britches. I do think, you know, she's just not like showing up in the way that I want her to. You can't just like run off every time someone upsets you. But it is pretty good television. So those are my recommendations. I don't know if people watch this portion of my podcast, and if you do, you can leave a comment telling me what you've been watching, and if you like reality television, because fiber artists who love reality television, I'm looking for you. Okay. Whew. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm pretty tired after filming that. With that being said, thank you for watching this podcast episode. I appreciate you being here. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. See y'all soon. Bye.